If you wanted to map the architecture of a massive, decentralized global power network, where would you start looking? The answer might be hidden inside this document, the May 2026 Princess Heartline Third Batch Official Directory. The document's table of contents shows deep integration with established global power structures. Section 3 lists regional blocks, Section V details United Nations agencies, and Section 6 maps a global sovereign directory. The text claims formal relationships with 258 sovereign countries, territories, and subsidiary bodies, but those macro-political ambitions rest entirely on a single foundational metric detailed right at the top in Section 1, a highly specific roster of 24,000 officially recognized members. To prove or disprove the legitimacy of this global infrastructure, we have to perform a forensic audit on its primary asset, that 24,000-member database. This is the organization's own visual representation of its decentralized network. Each of these individual glowing nodes represents one of the 24,000 verified identities that supposedly make up its power base. But a close reading of the text reveals that the directory does not operate as a standard, flat roster. Instead, it utilizes a bifurcated data architecture. That means it consists of a highly curated hierarchical apex sitting on top of a massive procedurally generated baseline. Verifying the authenticity of this underlying baseline data is the single point of failure. If the baseline data proves synthetic, the entire sovereign network is rendered synthetic alongside it. We begin at the very top, with the first layer of the database, the Gen Z rosters, serving as the organization's apex. These lists are bound by strict numerical caps, a featured list of 24, a main list of 24, and an official list of 25. Examining the names inside these bounding boxes, like Catherine Bernardo or Liza Soberano, reveals distinct text strings. There is no algorithmic pattern here. These represent high-value, recognizable human identities. This curated seed layer operates as the highly visible front of the organization. It is deliberately designed to project influence and legitimacy. However, there is a glaring mathematical discrepancy. These curated seed lists only account for roughly 120 names. The organization claims 24,000. This curated seed layer acts as a bespoke facade, a misdirection masking the true volume and nature of the data hiding beneath it. That leaves a massive data gap of 23,880 entries that the directory has to fill to meet its own claims. The solution to closing that gap begins in a section labeled Full Directory Part 1A. Applying a data parsing framework to the A directory, clear anomalies emerge. The text repeats a single prefix, Aaliyah. Every entry follows a strict formula: first name, middle initial, surname. Watch the loop cascade. Aaliyah A. Begornia, Aaliyah B. Salvador. The variables flip like a slot machine. This specific data architecture is known as a combinatorial generation matrix, the sudden abandonment of unique human curation in favor of algorithmic iteration proves that the dataset is being synthetically expanded. Exhausting the Aaliyah array, the algorithm cycles to the next primary key prefixes, Abby, Ace, and Ada. The equation is simple. One primary key, multiplied by 26 initials, multiplied by a set list of surnames, yields exponential roster growth. This combinatorial methodology effortlessly populates parts 1 through 38 of the directory, covering just the A and B sections. The immense manual effort required to source and curate the 120 names in the Gen Z Apex layer stands in stark contrast to the zero-effort automated efficiency of this lower tier. Database architects use this exact combinatorial padding technique for a specific reason. It generates enough minor variation to pass a casual visual inspection and simulate organic scale. But that extreme structural repetition leaves a permanent fingerprint of synthetic generation across the entire document. The 24,000-member capacity is a mathematical illusion, an algorithmic parlor trick deployed to project political scale rather than a system tracking actual individuals. This brings us back to the macro level and the document's broader claims regarding global security and infrastructure. Section 7 of the Table of Contents introduces a glaring conflict: claims of digital identity versus the synthetic output of the generation matrix. The promise of strict authenticity verification clashes entirely with the unverified procedural nature of the data array right next to it. A system cannot simultaneously enforce rigorous individual verification while relying on bulk algorithmic data padding just to exist. If the underlying identities are procedurally generated, the stated partnerships with UN bodies and sovereign states lose their foundational anchor. The synthetic illusion of the data simply cannot support the physical, bureaucratic reality of international assemblies and global statecraft. The micro-data reality of the combinatorial matrix completely invalidates the macro-bureaucratic claims of the organization. This provides a clear lesson in document forensics and open-source intelligence gathering. Synthetic identities lock together into a rigid, inflexible structure. The unbreakable rigidity of the combinatorial algorithm mimics these repeating geometric shards, perfectly patterned, entirely uniform, and completely unnatural. In data forensics, the methodology of how a dataset is generated reveals far more truth than the text contained within it. Abstract claims of massive sovereign scale and United Nations integration mean nothing until you audit the underlying structural architecture. No matter how convincing the curated facade appears on the surface, the geometric reality of the underlying data will always reveal the true nature of